The Google Dictionary and other dictionaries are hardly dispositive then, but they do at least suggest a biological theory of gender, namely, in the case of woman, this thesis that I've called W, S is a woman if and only if S is an adult female human. Or just spelling it out a bit more, necessarily S is a woman if and only if S is an adult female human. It's impossible to be the one without being the other. Similarly, in the case of man, S is a man if and only if S is an adult male human, and in the case of boy, S is a boy if and only if S is a juvenile male human, etc. Please read the footnote on this slide. Barnes starts by arguing against biological theories of gender. So this is her first argument against W, or theses like it. To begin with, she says, someone can be a woman without clearly being female. Some women, like Dina, for example, that's one of her characters, have a condition known as androgen insensitivity syndrome, or more accurately, complete androgen insensitivity syndrome. That's one of many conditions that can result in bodies that don't easily fit our classifications of male or female. Okay, that suggests the following argument. Premise 1, Dina is a woman. Premise 2, Dina is not clearly female. Exercise for you. Can we get from these two premises to the conclusion that W is false? If not, what premises do we need? Here is a second argument against W, at least suggested by Barnes's paper. You can clearly be, Barnes says, a woman in the ways that matter to us socially, even if you're not classifiable as female. So that gives us this argument. Premise 1, Julia, say, is a woman in the ways that matter to us socially. Premise 2, Julia is not female. Exercise for you. Can we get from P1 and P2 to the conclusion that W is false? If not, what premises do we need? Having argued against biological theories of gender, Barnes then turns to social theories of gender, theories according to which gender is a social category, and she divides these up into two. Gender externalists, those who say that your gender is determined primarily by how other people react to you, and gender internalists, those who say that your gender is determined primarily by your own internal sense of yourself. Now that formulation might not sound, the formulation of gender internalism might not sound very social, but it actually is. As she says, according to the gender internalist, gender is a matter of your internally felt sense of your relationship to the gender norms and categories that are common within our society. So, having made this distinction, Barnes takes them in turn and argues against each one. She takes Sally Haslanger's theory of gender, understood as a descriptive theory, not a normative theory, as a paradigm example of this kind of view. She gives some apparent counterexamples to Haslanger's theory, and in doing so, Barnes is raising what Haslanger calls, quoting from Haslanger's paper, the commonality problem, whether there is anything social that females have in common that could count as their gender. So here's one of Barnes's cases, the Amazons. We typically think of myths about Amazons as myths about a race of powerful women. But Haslanger's view has the curious result that these stories aren't really stories about women, since in the stories, Amazons are not oppressed and do not occupy disadvantaged social roles. We could put the general line of objection like this: you can twiddle how people react to other people as much as you like, but just doing that won't get rid of the women. Therefore, any kind of gender externalism is wrong. Turning now to gender internalism, Barnes puts it in terms of gender identity. If we say that gender is determined, at least in part, by gender identity, then we can say that you are a woman if and only if you identify as one. That is, S is a woman if and only if S identifies as a woman. But what is it to identify as a woman or a man? For the most part, Barnes writes, when philosophers talk about gender identity, they mean your internally felt sense of your relationship to the gender norms and categories that are common within our society. I already quoted that part. So if you identify as a woman, this typically means that the norms we have about women are appropriately applied to you. Importantly, this does not mean that you think those norms are themselves correct or appropriate. You may think that most of our norms and stereotypes about what women are like are wrong. You just think that people aren't making a categorical mistake when they classify you with other women and apply those norms to you as a result. Exercise for you is identifying as a woman different from believing that one is a woman. Could you identify as a woman without believing that you're one, or could you believe that you are one without identifying as one? Well, what's wrong with gender internalism? Again, Barnes gives some counterexamples, or apparent counterexamples. Many cognitively disabled women plausibly don't experience anything like an internally felt sense of their relationship to sex-based social norms. So whatever it is to identify as a woman, these women probably aren't in that internal state. And yet, it seems utterly wrong to say that cognitively disabled women are not women. Or, put slightly better, it seems utterly wrong to say that no women are cognitively disabled. Here's a variant of this sort of apparent counterexample. A woman might have been in a persistent vegetative state and so not experience anything since puberty. So here's Barnes' rather pessimistic conclusion. We need a theory of gender, an account of what women and men are, but neither biological or social accounts, either externalist or internalist, are satisfactory. What we're left with, she says, is a lot of confusion.
Dad, what's all that smoke?
Griffin, I was recording a lecture. It's the fog of philosophical confusion surrounding gender, though I think it's clearing now. Anyway, there's a break next week. I'll see you after that.
You forgot to wish the students a happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, okay. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.